The flickering fluorescent lights cast a tired glow across the bathroom mirror, reflecting the weary face of Nathan Cole. He adjusted his worn-out baseball hat one last time, as if settling into a new identity. No longer the sharp-suited CEO perched atop the corporate tower of Coleman Industries. Nathan was just Nate today, a fresh hire on the warehouse floor, standing among men and women whose lives were built on sweat, sore backs, and silent resilience. No one here would have guessed he was the man who'd built the very empire they worked for. The idea of going undercover hadn't come from a publicity stunt or some management seminar. It had emerged from a string of sleepless nights filled with doubt, moments when Nathan wondered if he'd lost touch with the people who held up the company from the bottom. The board had scoffed at the idea, calling it a waste of time. His assistant had voiced real concern about the risk. But for Nathan, it wasn't optional. It was essential. He needed to see what his company looked like from the ground up, unfiltered and unvarnished. 6 weeks in steel toe boots and a work shirt wouldn't kill him, but it just might teach him something about the soul of Coleman Industries. He needed to prove, to himself most of all, that this company wasn't just about earnings reports and executive bonuses. It was built on people. Real people. People whose stories rarely made it into PowerPoint decks or boardroom presentations. His footsteps echoed across the vast concrete floor of the warehouse like ripples across a sea of industry. Forklifts darted between towering shelves like worker bees, while men and women in reflective vests moved in synchronized efficiency. The air was thick with the smell of cardboard, metal, and effort, a sharp contrast to the polished scents of leather chairs and cologne back at headquarters. "You the new guy?" a raspy, authoritative voice asked. Nathan turned to see a broad-shouldered man holding out a hand that looked like it could crush walnuts with a casual squeeze. Tom Hurst, warehouse supervisor. "Hope you're not dead weight. Everyone here earns their spot." Nathan nodded quickly, tamping down his instincts to assert himself. "Yes, sir, I'm ready to learn." "Good. You'll be on receiving with Martinez and Hayes. They'll show you the ropes." As Tom walked away, Nathan's eyes were drawn to a figure in the far corner of the warehouse, a man methodically stacking boxes with a rhythm and precision that seemed almost meditative. He didn't talk, didn't laugh. He moved as if each gesture mattered. "That's Jordan Hayes," said a voice beside him. Nathan turned to see Carlos Martinez, his soon-to-be partner. "He's been here about 8 months. Doesn't say much, but he's easily the hardest worker we've got." Nathan watched Jordan more closely. Mid-30s, lean build, his hands bore the thick calluses of years in manual labor. But what struck Nathan the most wasn't the strength in Jordan's arms or the steadiness in his movements. It was the posture, straight-backed, unyielding, as though every box he lifted was a statement of dignity, a refusal to bend to the weight of circumstance. The morning passed in a haze of repetition, stacking, scanning, lifting, aching. Muscles Nathan hadn't used in years screamed with every movement. The gym routines and luxury equipment he'd grown used to now felt laughably artificial compared to this raw, unfiltered labor. "You grabbing lunch?" Carlos asked, wiping his brow. Nathan paused, looking over at Jordan. "Still working." "What about Hayes?" "Jordan, nah, says he's not hungry, but..." Carlos lowered his voice. "Between you and me, I think he's broke, like seriously broke." Something twisted in Nathan's chest. Part curiosity, part guilt. Coleman paid well, by industry standards. If Jordan was still struggling, then something deeper was going wrong. Not just for one man, but for the whole system. Nathan prided himself on running a company that treated its people right, but that afternoon, watching Jordan continue to scrub and organize his workstation long after others had checked out for the day, something inside him shifted. At precisely 4:47, with 13 minutes still on the clock, Jordan began his closing routine, arranging tools, sweeping floors, even wiping down surfaces that didn't need it. Nathan found himself drawn in by the quiet reverence in Jordan's work. It wasn't obligation. It was purpose. "You don't have to stay late, you know," Nathan said gently as he approached. Jordan looked up, startled. It was the first time Nathan had seen his face clearly. Lines of exhaustion, yes, but also kindness, resolve. A man who had suffered but never soured. "I'm not staying late," Jordan replied, his voice even, just finishing right. It was a tired face, no doubt shaped by years of colliding with life's unforgiving weight, but Nathan noticed something remarkable. Jordan's eyes still held a gentle softness. There was no bitterness, no hardened edge, just a quiet endurance steeped in dignity. "I'm not staying late," Jordan replied calmly. "I just want to finish things the right way." Nathan nodded in silent understanding. "I'm Nate. Just started here." "Jordan," he said, shaking Nathan's hand with a grip that was firm, brief, and sincere. "Welcome to Coleman." The shift ended, but unlike the others who clocked out and hurried to their cars, Nathan lingered. Something about Jordan made him want to understand more. As the crowd thinned, Nathan noticed Jordan heading in the opposite direction. Not toward the employee parking lot, but down the long road away from the industrial zone. The warehouse sat miles from the nearest residential area. Nathan frowned. Was he walking home? In this sweltering 90-degree heat? Nathan jogged to catch up. "Jordan, hey, you want a ride? I'm heading toward downtown." Jordan stopped. For a split second, Nathan saw hesitation flicker across his face. The kind that came when pride clashed with practicality. "No, thanks. I like walking in this kind of weather." Nathan raised an eyebrow, trying to keep things light. "In this heat, man, it's like walking through soup." "Seriously." "Thank you, though," Jordan replied with finality. The conversation dropped off like a closing door, and Nathan was left watching Jordan shrink into the haze of heat and dust. In the days that followed, Nathan paid closer attention. Every morning at exactly 6:45, Jordan arrived. 15 minutes early. His work boots, clearly handed down through multiple owners, were meticulously clean. Lunch, the same every day, a plain peanut butter sandwich and a bottle of tap water. Rain or shine, he turned down every offer for a ride. When someone brought in donuts, he smiled but politely declined. Something wasn't adding up. "Hey, have you noticed Hayes never joins any group stuff?" Nathan asked Carlos one Thursday afternoon. Carlos glanced around before responding in a hushed tone. "Jordan's solid, quiet, keeps to himself, but there's something heavy on him. Not arrogance, more like he's carrying something big." The words stayed with Nathan. That night, instead of retreating to his penthouse with its panoramic skyline views and chilled wine, Nathan did something his security detail would have considered reckless. He followed Jordan. Slowly, discreetly, lights off. He trailed the man as he passed through the old shopping district into neighborhoods that had clearly seen better days. 10 miles. 10 full miles on foot. Nathan tracked every step from the warehouse to a modest apartment complex nestled in a patch of quiet desperation. The buildings were worn but tidy, home to people trying to stitch new lives together with limited means. Nathan sat in his car, stunned. Why would a man walk 20 miles a day for work? Even with gas prices what they were, a bus pass or used car seemed more rational. The next morning, Nathan arrived before Jordan. At exactly 6:45, Jordan showed up again, sweat already on his brow, posture straight. "Good morning, Jordan," Nathan offered with an easy smile. "Morning, Nate. Nice day for a walk, huh?" Jordan replied as he slipped on his gloves. Nathan chuckled. "I was thinking of walking myself. Might do me good. How far do you go?" Just for a moment, a crack appeared in Jordan's careful facade, a flicker of something honest and raw. "Not far, just a few miles," he said, almost inaudibly. But Nathan knew better. He'd driven every step. As the day passed and he watched Jordan move with surgical precision, never complaining, Nathan began to see the truth. This wasn't about exercise. This wasn't about frugality. This was about survival. This was about commitment. Jordan was walking not because he wanted to, but because he had no other choice. Because something or someone was worth every agonizing mile. A chill ran down Nathan's spine, not from the air-conditioned warehouse, but from memory. He was suddenly a boy again, watching his own father, David Cole, trudge down a gravel road toward the steel mill. Back before there was wealth. Before the high-rises and business-class flights. Back when survival meant moving forward, one painful step at a time. 3 weeks into his blue-collar masquerade, Nathan had a rhythm. Coffee at 6:30, work till 5, then home to luxury. But not tonight. Tonight, curiosity won. He parked a few streets away from Jordan's apartment, engine off, windows cracked. It felt intrusive, even unethical. But something inside him, some fragile thread of old truth tied to his father's sacrifices, compelled him forward. At 7:23 p.m., Jordan exited his building, not with the purposeful stride of a man heading to work, but a cautious, reluctant gait. Nathan followed from a safe distance, his heartbeat steady but quick. Jordan arrived at a dilapidated complex, paint peeling, a rusted playground sagging under the weight of neglect. He knocked softly on door 4B. From behind paper-thin walls, Nathan could hear snippets of conversation. A woman's voice, sharp, impatient. Jordan's, calm, pleading. After a few minutes, Jordan stepped back out, shoulders heavy with defeat. But he didn't go home. Instead, he sat on a broken bench near the playground, pulled out his phone, and called. "Hey, princess," his voice softened to a level Nathan had never heard before. "I know you can't talk long. I wanted to hear your voice." Nathan couldn't hear the reply, but he saw something change in Jordan's face. The weariness melted away, replaced by a glow of something pure. "I'm doing everything I can, sweetheart, so one day soon we'll be together again, okay? I know you're still little, but one day you'll understand. I'm doing this all for you." He paused, swallowing the tremor in his voice. "I love you more than all the stars in the sky." Nathan sat motionless in his car, a lump in his throat, eyes fixed on a man who had nothing, except an unbreakable love that walked 10 miles in the dark, just to whisper goodnight to his daughter. The call ended. Jordan sat frozen for several minutes before slowly standing and retracing his long walk back. Nathan remained motionless inside his car for a solid 20 minutes afterward. In that quiet stillness, the pieces snapped into place. This was the reason. This was Jordan's battle to reclaim his role as a father, those daily miles walked, the meager lunches, the unspoken silence. Every element converged toward this one goal, spending even just a little more time with his daughter. The next morning, Nathan arrived earlier than ever. He found Mrs. Rodriguez, an elderly woman who lived in Jordan's apartment building and worked part-time at the warehouse office. "Jordan Hayes?" she asked when Nathan mentioned his name. "Good man, always helps me carry my groceries upstairs." Gentle and polite. "Quiet, though," he added. Mrs. Rodriguez leaned in, lowering her voice. "Poor kid. He's fighting a tough one." Nathan felt his chest tighten. "Fighting what exactly?" he asked. "Custody," she replied. "Divorce. His ex's family is wealthy. They hired top lawyers and are painting Jordan as an unfit father just because he doesn't have money. But who wouldn't do everything they can for their child?" Nathan's tone grew serious. His daughter? Ava. She loves him. I've seen them together during visits. She lights up like a Christmas tree when she sees him. Mrs. Rodriguez shook her head sadly. But you know how court is. Sometimes it's not about being best parent, but who can hire the best lawyer. Nathan's hand clenched into a fist. Supervised visits every other weekend, just a few hours at a time. And here he was, a man with everything, still pretending to be the broke guy. Meanwhile, Jordan, a true father, fought for every dollar just to, quite literally, fight. That evening, Nathan couldn't focus on anything. His wealthy, luxury-filled world felt empty compared to Jordan's raw struggle. He was sitting in penthouse comfort while Jordan, alone, with nothing but willpower and a tender heart, faced the full weight of the legal system to hold on to his daughter. Nathan's mind drifted back to a distant memory, to his own father, David Cole, a quiet, uncomplaining man who carried a heavy load. When Nathan was 7 and his mother disappeared, David took on 3 jobs to keep them going. Long days, followed by bedtime stories before dawn, without once complaining. Nathan remembered snowy mornings when their car broke down and his father walked miles to the plant. He remembered nights of cereal instead of dinner, yet through it all, David never made Nathan feel like a burden or less than loved. He simply did what needed to be done. Now, looking at Jordan, Nathan saw that same hushed strength, this quiet endurance and willingness to shoulder hardship for the love of someone else. Jordan's sacrifice wasn't public, but it was no less heroic. A week later, during a conversation with Carlos, Nathan learned something more. Jordan asked for 2 days off, Carlos said, shaking his head quietly. He wouldn't say why, but he looks like he's carrying the weight of the world. Nathan didn't need to guess any further. This was family court. That night, Nathan made a decision. He wouldn't just watch anymore. He'd find out exactly what Jordan was facing, and he'd help him. But first, he needed context for the true magnitude of Jordan's battle. After living as a worker on the warehouse floor, Nathan learned a vital truth. The most consequential battles occur not in boardrooms or profit charts, but in the hearts of people fighting for love, dignity, and in this case, a father's right to be a dad. For Jordan Hayes, the fight was quiet, grounded in miles walked and lunches skipped, all just to preserve hope. But this time, he wouldn't be alone. Nathan didn't yet know how dramatically everything was about to shift. Thursday arrived with unusual tension. The warehouse felt off balance when a familiar face didn't clock in. That was the first time Jordan had been absent in 8 months. Hayes called in sick, Tom Hiss announced during morning brief. First time, must be serious. Nathan nodded along with everyone else, but internally he already knew. How? Because after tracking Jordan's walk the previous night, Nathan spent hours combing through the county court system, matching addresses. He had discovered Hayes v. Hayes Morrison, a family court hearing scheduled for 9:00 a.m. IEM in courtroom 3B. By 8:30, Nathan sat in the back row of 3B, wearing a plain gray suit and glasses, blending in like any other court observer. His heart pounded as people entered the room. At 8:55, Jordan walked in alone. He wore a slightly worn but neat suit, hair combed carefully, shoulders squared under the heaviness he carried. Nathan's throat tightened. This man, he was exactly how Nathan remembered his own father. Determined, stoic, yet quietly worried, just before his own hard conversations with creditors and school principals. Victoria Hayes Morrison entered like a cold wind sweeping through the courtroom. She walked between 2 impeccably dressed attorneys, each in $1,000 suits, followed by her parents, whose glances were dripping with disdain. This was more than a custody hearing. It was a carefully staged performance, a showcase of wealth against humility. "All rise," the bailiff's voice rang out. The Honorable Judge Patricia Winters presiding. Judge Winters, a woman in her early 50s, her steel glove hair pulled back in a no-nonsense bun and eyes sharper than a blade, took her seat. The courtroom quieted. "Please be seated. We're here today for the custody modification case, Hayes versus Hayes Morrison. Counsel, please state your appearances," Judge Winters requested. Margaret Blackwood answered first. "Margaret Blackwood, representing the petitioner, Mrs. Victoria Hayes Morrison, Your Honor." Her tone dripped with confidence. Then Jordan rose slowly, his posture stiff yet determined. "Jordan Hayes, representing myself, Your Honor." The judge arched an eyebrow. Never a good sign for someone without legal representation in family court. "Mr. Hayes," Judge Winters said deliberately, "I see you're requesting expanded custody of your daughter Ava, but there's no counsel listed on your filing. Are you certain you wish to represent yourself?" Jordan nodded once, decisively. "Yes, Your Honor, I can't afford an attorney, but I believe I can present my case sufficiently." Margaret leaned forward, a polite smile plastered on her face. "Your Honor, this case involves complex financial analysis and child welfare considerations that demand advanced legal expertise. My client is concerned that Mr. Hayes's lack of representation may not serve the best interests of the child." Nathan clenched his fist so hard his knuckles turned white. This was exactly the attack he'd feared, using money as a weapon to deny a father's ability to parent. "Noted, Miss Blackwood," Judge Winters acknowledged. "Mr. Hayes, you may proceed with your opening statement." Jordan stood again, clutching a yellow legal pad filled with notes, likely written over sleepless nights, his entire life distilled into those pages. "My daughter means more to me than anything else in this world," he began, voice steady but raw with emotion. "I know I don't have the resources that my ex-wife's family does, but every day I work is for Ava. I hold a steady job. I live in a clean, organized apartment. I have never missed a scheduled visit. I'm seeking fair custody because Ava deserves to have both parents present in her life." His words felt heartfelt and plain-spoken, the plea of a man lost in a system built for polished professionals, not a struggling father. Margaret responded with measured precision. "Your Honor, we do not doubt Mr. Hayes's love for his daughter, but we must consider reality. Mr. Hayes lives in a one-bedroom apartment in a high-crime area. He works manual labor with unpredictable schedules. Critically, he does not own a car. He walks. That is not conducive to the needs of a child." Jordan sprang to his feet, voice shaking with anger and fear. "That's not true. My neighborhood is safe. I would never put Ava at risk." But Judge Winters' gavel silenced him before he could continue. "Mr. Hayes," she said firmly, "please wait to be recognized before speaking." Jordan's face flushed with shame. From his seat in the back, Nathan saw the helplessness flicker across Jordan's features. Exactly the state Blackwood wanted. Unprepared, emotionally raw, disadvantaged. She came armed with bank statements, character witnesses, and a child psychologist attesting to restricting custody for stability. Jordan fought back with his love, his instincts, and raw truth, but he lacked the legal training to effectively respond to leading questions or challenge expert testimony. Nathan sat forward, his heart aching as he watched every second. After 2 grueling hours, Judge Winters sighed, her expression conflicted. "This court will take the matter under advisement. However, I must express concern over the disparity in legal representation and resources. Mr. Hayes, your devotion to your daughter is clear, but the court must weigh practical factors that impact the child's welfare. A decision will be issued within 2 weeks." Silence swallowed the room. Jordan sat motionless at the plaintiff's table, head in his hands. Victoria and her wealthy entourage left confidently with no backward glance. Nathan slipped out quietly before Jordan could see him, haunted by the image of a man losing not from lack of love, but lack of means. That night, Nathan made a decision that would shake his company. No more observing. He would act. On his way to the elevator, Nathan caught Jordan's eye. "Catch you later," he said casually. Jordan gave a small nod before turning back to his work, completely unaware that his life was about to change forever. 20 minutes later, Nathan stood in the executive boardroom on the top floor. He had swapped his warehouse uniform for a tailored suit he kept in his office. Sarah Chin flipped through the last folder on the table. "Are you absolutely certain about this, Mr. Cole?" she asked quietly. "This is unconventional." "I'm sure," Nathan replied. "That man deserves more than what life has handed him, and sometimes doing the unexpected is the only way to truly make change." At exactly 2 p.m., something happened that hadn't occurred in years. An announcement over the warehouse PA system. "Attention, all warehouse staff, please report to the main floor for a company waste meeting. All operations will pause for the next 30 minutes. The floor buzzed with nervous chatter. These kinds of meetings rarely brought good news. Nathan stood quietly at the back, eyes scanning for Jordan, who now wore a puzzled frown. Sarah Chin stepped forward with a microphone. "Thank you all for coming. Today we gather to recognize someone whose contributions have been exceptional. Over the past 6 weeks, Coleman Industries has been conducting a special internal evaluation to identify individuals who truly embody our company's core values." A wave of confusion swept through the crowd as Nathan took the stage. Who was this man in the sharp suit? "Good afternoon," Nathan began, his voice calm but commanding. "For the past 6 weeks I've worked alongside you, not as Nathan Cole, CEO of Coleman Industries, but simply as Nate, just another guy in the warehouse." You could hear a pin drop. Everyone was frozen in disbelief. "During this time, I've seen extraordinary dedication, quiet professionalism, and character that can't be measured by titles or paychecks. But one man stood out, not just for how he works, but for who he is." Nathan's gaze found Jordan, standing stunned in the crowd. His face had gone pale, lips parted in disbelief. "Jordan Hayes," Nathan continued, his voice strong but warm, "has shown me what true commitment looks like, not just to his job, but to something even greater, to love, to perseverance, and to integrity. He shows up early, works hard, respects every task, no matter how small. He is the living example of what this company stands for." Scattered applause began, but Nathan raised his hand. He turned toward Jordan. "Oh, Jordan, would you come up here and stand with me?" Jordan didn't move at first. It wasn't until a coworker gently tapped his shoulder that he took a step forward, like walking through fog, his legs trembling under the weight of it all. "Jordan," Nathan said gently, his voice now more intimate, "I know why you walk to work every day. I know what you're fighting for, and I know you've been carrying it all alone." Tears welled up in Jordan's eyes. He swallowed hard, trying to hold himself together. "Starting today," Nathan announced, "Coleman Industries is launching a legal support program for employees navigating family court. We will provide full legal representation at no cost, because no parent should lose their child simply because they're an honest worker." Jordan let out a small gasp. I don't understand." Nathan placed a steady hand on his shoulder. "You're going to get the help you deserve. Margaret Blackwood may be the most feared attorney in the state, but she's about to meet Robert Chin, Sarah's husband. He's never lost a single custody case for a good father." The warehouse erupted in applause. Hundreds of hands clapped in unison, echoing through the rafters like a heartbeat. Jordan stood still, tears streaming, not out of weakness, but from the unbearable weight of relief. Nathan raised a hand to quiet the crowd once more. "There's only one condition. You have to accept this for what it is, not charity, not pity. It's a well-earned recognition of the father you are, and the man you've always been." Jordan struggled to form words, trying multiple times before he could finally whisper, "Why? Why would you do this for me?" Nathan's voice softened, not the voice of a CEO now, but of a son who once watched his own father fight silent battles. "Because 30 years ago, my father walked to the factory every day just to earn enough to raise me. Because sometimes, good people need someone to believe in them. And because your daughter deserves a father who's fully equipped to fight for her." Jordan collapsed into tears. He hid his face, shoulders trembling with emotion. Nathan swept him into a strong embrace. The warehouse fell silent, then erupted in applause. The sound wasn't just for Jordan. It was for a renewed faith, one ignited in the hearts of every weary worker. "Welcome to the rest of your life, Jordan," Nathan said softly. "Now we fight for Ava together." 2 weeks later, Nathan arrived early at courtroom 3B, heart pounding with anticipation. Today's hearing would decide everything. He chose a seat near the third row, close enough to see, far enough to remain unnoticed. He wasn't alone. Word of the warehouse program had spread, and many of Jordan's co-workers were there to support him. At 8:55 a.m., the doors swung open. Jordan appeared, but this time he was no longer the trembling man of 2 weeks ago. He wore a well-fitted gray suit and a neatly combed haircut, standing tall with composed confidence. By his side stood Robert Chin. Tall, poised, and undeniably authoritative, Robert's reputation preceded him. 15 years in family law, never losing a custody case for a devoted parent. Victoria entered a few moments later, but lacking the air of superiority she carried the first round. Margaret Blackwood leaned in with a tense whisper. They both had seen this courtroom drama before, and now realized they were outmatched. "All rise," the court clerk announced, the Honorable Judge Patricia Winters presiding. Seeing Robert enter, the judge's eyes sharpened subtly, a flicker of acknowledgement. "Counsel, your names for the record, please." Robert stepped forward confidently. Robert Chin, representing Mr. Jordan Hayes. "Your Honor." Margaret Blackwood hesitated, her voice quieter than before. "Margaret Blackwood, representing Mrs. Victoria Hayes Morrison." "Mr. Chin," the judge addressed him calmly. "I understand you were appointed after the previous hearing. Are you prepared to proceed?" "Yes, Your Honor. We have new evidence and testimony we believe will be decisive." What happened next was a masterclass in legal advocacy. Robert didn't just defend Jordan, he rewrote the entire narrative. Every weakness exposed by the opposition was reframed as a strength of character and resilience. "Your Honor," Robert began, "the petitioner's team painted a picture of financial instability. I intend to redraw that picture." He paused, then continued with quiet conviction. "Mr. Jordan Hayes has worked at Coleman Industries for 8 consecutive months without a single absence until the judicial hearing. His supervisor testified he's among the most reliable in the warehouse, and yes, he walks to work. Not due to lack of money, but because he's saving every penny for a greater purpose, a brighter future for his daughter." Robert opened a portfolio with methodical calm. Bank statements demonstrated Jordan's disciplined savings, character letters from co-workers, neighbors, and a heartfelt note from Mrs. Rodriguez, testifying to Jordan's kindness, generosity, and responsibility, lay neatly compiled. "But even more, Your Honor," Robert pressed on. "His sacrifice isn't merely financial. He has never missed any visit the court has allowed him. He's maintained contact with his daughter at every opportunity." He placed a stack of materials on the lectern. Children's crayon drawings, stick figures labeled "Me" and "Daddy," scribbled messages like, "I miss you, Dad, and when will I come home?" Nathan's eyes burned with tears. These weren't just exhibits, They were a child's heart laid bare in wax crayon. But the real knockout came when Robert Chin stood and pointed toward the witness stand. "Mr. Hayes, why do you walk 20 miles every day to get to work?" he asked. Jordan looked Judge Winters in the eye. "Because my daughter deserves a father willing to do whatever it takes to be by her side. Every step I take is one step closer to bringing her home." "And if granted expanded custody," Robert continued, "how will you care for Ava?" For the first time in court, Jordan smiled, a glimmer of confidence. "I've been saving for 9 months to put a down payment on a used car. I have the money now, and my employer offers a financing program for staff. I've also researched top-rated schools and the safest routes to get there." Margaret Blackwood's offensive faltered. She tried to question his finances only to find out he'd just been promoted to shift supervisor with a raise. She questioned his living arrangements only to learn he'd placed a deposit on a better 2-bedroom apartment. Everything Robert brought to the table dismantled her argument. His final blow was unexpected. A child psychologist, Dr. Sarah Martinez. "From my assessments, Ava shows a strong emotional bond with both parents," she testified. "However, she consistently expresses sadness over the limited time she spends with her father. She is proud of him and believes he's doing everything he can. Granting expanded custody would greatly benefit her emotional well-being." Judge Winters took copious notes. Her normally stoic expression softened. When the hearing concluded, the outcome was clear. Blackwood remained seated, drained. Victoria looked as if awakening from a shocked stupor. Jordan sat beside his attorney, no longer shaken, but steady and ready. "Mr. Hayes," Judge Winters began, her voice resonating through the courtroom, "I rarely see such a dramatic shift in circumstances within 2 weeks. Your devotion to your daughter is beyond question. I'm impressed with the measures you took to address the court's earlier concerns. Therefore, I am granting expanded custody, beginning with alternating weekends, moving toward joint custody, subject to review in 6 months. A wave of relief washed over the courtroom. Shoulder pats and proud smiles followed. Nathan silently wept in his seat, but Judge Winters wasn't done. "I also want to formally state," she said, "that this case highlights why our justice system must be equitable to all parents, regardless of financial means. Mr. Hayes, you have shown that love and perseverance cannot be measured by one's bank account." As the courtroom emptied, Nathan watched Jordan embrace his attorney, both overcome with emotion. Justice had finally been served, and a father was being granted the chance he had fought so hard to reclaim. 6 months later, Nathan stood by his office window, overlooking the morning shift change. Below, a familiar figure stepped out of a silver Honda Civic, the same car Jordan had secured through the Employee Assistance Program. Everything about him was different. His walk was confident, his posture upright, shoulders no longer burdened. What struck Nathan most was the sight of a little girl with pigtails skipping next to him, a pure, joyful smile that belonged to a girl who knows she is safe and loved. Ava Hayes, 6 years old, was radiant as her dad escorted her toward the now exclusive daycare center Nathan had quietly expanded after witnessing Jordan's struggle. A tap on the door brought Nathan back. "Come in," he called. Jordan entered, wearing his supervisor uniform with clear pride. He carried a folder of safety reports and something wrapped in bright paper. "Good morning, Mr. Cole. Here are the quarterly safety reports you requested." His voice paused. "And this is from Ava. She insisted on giving it to you." Nathan unwrapped the gift to find a simple but moving drawing. 3 stick figures. One tall, labeled Mr. Nathan, another labeled Daddy, and a smaller one labeled Me. Above them were Ava's carefully written words, "Thank you for helping Daddy help me." Nathan's voice trembled. His hand shook as he held the drawing. "This is incredible," he managed. "Thank you," Jordan said softly, eyes fixed on the drawing. She really wanted to give it herself, but she's still shy around the big boss. He smiled, a gentle, genuine expression, reminding Nathan why he poured his heart into this moment. But she's excited, Jordan added. She's been talking about tonight's barbecue at your place non-stop. And it truly was more than a barbecue. It was a celebration, not of profit or corporate success, but of humanity, of connection, of life renewed after the hardest battles. Nathan looked at Jordan, breathed deeply, and asked, "Before you go, how are things now? With Ava, with work, with life?" Jordan paused, placing a hand over his heart. Then he said with clear-eyed sincerity, "I'm not just surviving anymore. I'm living." Jordan looked thoughtful, his expression momentarily still, as if reviewing the long journey behind him. "Honestly, I never thought my life could feel this peaceful. There were times when I was merely surviving, working, walking, saving, hoping. Each day was just about getting through the day." He paused, searching for the right words to voice feelings he rarely shared. "But now, life is different. Now I wake up and cook breakfast for my daughter. I drive her to school and tell her I love her. I go to work and actually look forward to it. I don't have to count every penny at month's end. I pick her up, help with homework, and read her bedtime stories." His voice trembled. "I'm no longer just surviving. I'm truly living." Nathan nodded, recalling his own father's journey, from exhaustion to renewal, when circumstances finally allowed his life to change. "She's lucky to have you as her dad," he said. Jordan smiled. "No, we're both lucky. And Mr. Cole, I need you to know this. What you did, it didn't just change the court case. It changed me. You gave me back my dignity." That afternoon, Nathan's backyard came alive in an unexpected way. The wide patio, once sparsely adorned with a few planters, now echoed with laughter. Ava ran freely, the joyful energy of a happy 6-year-old. She paused to show Nathan a freshly picked wildflower or begged him to push her on the swing Nathan had installed just for her. As the scent of grilled burgers wafted through the air, Nathan pulled out an old photo from his wallet, a sepia-toned keepsake. "Jordan," he said gently, "I want you to meet someone." He held out the photo. It showed a man in workwear walking down an industrial road. "This is my father, David Cole. He walked miles to the factory when I was about Ava's age." Jordan studied the picture carefully. "He looks like a good man," he said softly. "Was. Never complained, never made me feel like a burden. He just put one foot in front of the other, worked, and believed tomorrow would be better." Nathan glanced at Ava, who was trying to teach him a dance she learned in school. "I think he would have liked you, and he'd understand exactly why you fought so hard." As the sun dipped behind the trees, Ava curled between Nathan and Jordan on the outdoor couch, her head resting on her dad's shoulder. She unfolded a piece of paper with determined sincerity. "Dad, can I read my school essay?" "Of course, Princess." She cleared her throat, face serious. "My dad walked 10 miles just to be with me." By Ava Hayes. "My dad is the best dad in the world because he never gave up on me. When we couldn't live together, he walked 10 miles to work every day to save money so we could be a family again. He walked in the rain, in the sun, even when his feet hurt. But he never quit. Now we live together again. He drives me to school and makes me pancakes on Saturdays. My dad taught me that love means never giving up, even when things get really hard." When Ava finished, tears streamed down Nathan's cheeks. Jordan choked up, hugging his daughter. "That was beautiful, sweetheart," he whispered. "My teachers said I might win a writing contest," Ava exclaimed jubilantly as dusk fell and Jordan prepared to take her home, to their cozy 2-bedroom apartment, where the fridge was plastered with drawings and photos of father-daughter moments. Nathan watched them go, feeling a profound realization. This is what real success looks like, not rising stock prices or quarterly profits, but a dad tucking his daughter into bed in their home, secure in love's triumph over hardship. Jordan Hayes walked 20 miles every day for love, and in the end, that same love walked him home. As the Civic's taillights disappeared around the corner, Nathan stood still beneath the porch light. Looking up at the night sky, he made a silent promise to his father. No matter how far his career may take him, he will never forget the view from the warehouse floor, or stop believing that the most important journeys begin with small steps. From a distance, the unmistakable sound of a child's laughter carried across the night. Nathan Cole smiled, knowing some stories end in the most beautiful way, and this was one of them.